Mrs. Anderson lived in a cozy house surrounded by blooming flowers and tall oak trees. After decades of teaching high school math, she had retired to a quiet life filled with books, gardening, and volunteering at the local community center. Though her days of standing in front of a classroom were over, her passion for teaching remained as strong as ever. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Mrs. Anderson spent her afternoons helping children and teenagers struggling with their studies. She loved seeing the spark in a student's eyes when they finally understood something they thought was impossible. To her, teaching wasn't just about numbers or formulas. It was about believing in people, especially when they couldn't believe in themselves. "You're never too old to learn," she often said with a smile. "And you're never too young to shine." Her neighbors admired her dedication, though some teased her for working so hard without pay. "You've earned your rest, Mrs. Anderson," they'd say. But Mrs. Anderson would laugh. "Rest is boring. Besides, there's always someone out there who needs a little extra help, and I happen to love giving it." One chilly afternoon, as Mrs. Anderson arrived at the community center, she noticed a teenage girl sitting alone at a table near the back. The girl looked frustrated, flipping through pages of a math workbook while scowling at the problems. Something about her caught Mrs. Anderson's attention, not just her slumped posture, but the sadness in her eyes. Little did Mrs. Anderson know, this meeting would change both their lives forever. The girl's name was Emily. She was 15, with messy hair and tired eyes that seemed older than her years. Mrs. Anderson approached her cautiously, not wanting to intrude. "Hi there," Mrs. Anderson said warmly. "I'm Mrs. Anderson. Do you mind if I sit here for a bit?" Emily shrugged, barely looking up from her workbook. "Sure, I guess." Mrs. Anderson glanced at the page Emily was working on. Basic algebra problems, most of them unanswered or crossed out in frustration. "This looks tricky," Mrs. Anderson said gently. "Need some help?" "I don't get it," Emily muttered, pushing the book away. "It's useless anyway. I'm never going to be good at this stuff." Mrs. Anderson nodded thoughtfully. "Math can feel overwhelming sometimes. But you know what? Everyone struggles with it. Even me when I was your age." Emily raised an eyebrow skeptically. "You struggled? You're a teacher." Mrs. Anderson chuckled. "Exactly. That's how I learned to teach. It takes patience and practice. Trust me, no one gets it right away." For a moment, Emily hesitated, then reluctantly slid the workbook back toward Mrs. Anderson. "Fine, but don't expect miracles." Over the next hour, Mrs. Anderson walked Emily through a few problems, breaking them down into smaller steps. She used real-life examples like calculating pizza slices or splitting grocery bills to make the concepts easier to grasp. Slowly but surely, Emily started getting the hang of it. "This isn't so bad," Emily admitted after solving a problem correctly. "See? You're smarter than you think," Mrs. Anderson replied with a smile. Despite the small victory, Emily still seemed distant. When Mrs. Anderson asked about school, she shrugged again. "Doesn't matter. No one cares if I pass or fail anyway." Mrs. Anderson frowned, sensing deeper issues beneath the surface. After the session ended, she pulled Emily aside. "If you'd like, we could work together more often," she offered. "Just the two of us outside of these sessions. No pressure, just a chance to build your confidence." Emily hesitated, clearly unsure whether to trust the stranger who kept pushing her to try harder. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, thanks." What neither of them realized was that this decision would mark the beginning of a transformative journey, not just for Emily, but for Mrs. Anderson too. The tutoring sessions started the very next week. Every afternoon after school, Emily would walk to Mrs. Anderson's house, where they worked at the kitchen table surrounded by the smell of freshly baked cookies and the sound of birds chirping outside. At first, progress was slow. Emily struggled with even the simplest equations, often giving up in frustration. "Why does this matter?" she'd snap, throwing her pencil down. "It's not like I'm ever going to use this junk." Mrs. Anderson never lost her patience. Instead, she'd smile and say, "Let's take a break. How about some cookies?" Over time, Mrs. Anderson discovered that Emily wasn't just fighting math. She was battling years of self-doubt and criticism. Her teachers had labeled her lazy, her classmates teased her for being dumb, and her parents were too busy working multiple jobs to notice her struggles. "You're not lazy or dumb," Mrs. Anderson told her firmly one day. "You're just stuck, and there's nothing wrong with needing help to get unstuck." To make learning less intimidating, Mrs. Anderson introduced games and puzzles into their lessons. They played card games to practice fractions, used measuring cups in the kitchen to learn ratios, and even built towers out of blocks to understand geometry. "These aren't tricks," Mrs. Anderson explained. "They're tools. Everyone learns differently, and we'll find what works best for you." Slowly, Emily began to improve. She solved problems more confidently and asked questions without fear of judgment. For the first time in years, she felt proud of herself, not just for getting answers right, but for trying. One rainy afternoon, as they sat sipping hot chocolate, Emily opened up about her life. She talked about how hard it was growing up poor, how lonely she felt at school, and how much she wanted to prove everyone wrong, but didn't know how. Mrs. Anderson listened quietly, nodding occasionally. When Emily finished, she reached across the table and patted her hand. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," she said softly. "Just keep showing up, keep trying. That's all that matters." Emily nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I wish my mom could see me now." "She will," Mrs. Anderson replied. "And when she does, she'll be so proud of you." As the weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. What began as a teacher-student relationship evolved into something closer to friendship or even family. Emily started looking forward to their sessions, not just for the math but for the warmth and encouragement Mrs. Anderson offered. For Mrs. Anderson, tutoring Emily reignited a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since retiring. Watching Emily grow stronger and more confident reminded her why she became a teacher in the first place. To make a difference, one student at a time. But neither of them knew yet just how big that difference would become. As the months passed, Emily's transformation became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just solving math problems. She was thriving. Her grades improved, and for the first time, her teachers began noticing her potential. "She's blossomed," one teacher remarked during a parent-teacher conference. "It's like she's a completely different person." But it wasn't just academics where Emily excelled. With newfound confidence, she joined the school science club, something she'd never dreamed of doing before. At first, she stayed quiet during meetings, listening intently as others discussed experiments and theories. But soon, she found herself raising her hand, asking questions, and even suggesting ideas. "Who knew you were such a science nerd?" her best friend teased one day after school. Emily grinned. "Me neither. Turns out, I kinda like figuring things out." Mrs. Anderson watched all of this with pride but didn't take full credit. "You did the hard work," she told Emily during one of their sessions. "I just gave you a push in the right direction." Still, challenges remained. Some classmates teased Emily for suddenly acting smart, saying things like, "What's with the Einstein act? You think you're better than us now." At first, the comments stung. Emily came to Mrs. Anderson's house one afternoon visibly upset. "I should just quit the club," she said bitterly. "They hate me anyway." Mrs. Anderson shook her head firmly. "No, they don't. They're just jealous because you're doing something brave, something they might not have the courage to do themselves." She handed Emily a notebook. "Write down why you started, why science matters to you. Whenever someone tries to bring you down, read it. Remind yourself why you're here." That night, Emily filled pages with her thoughts. How much she loved solving puzzles, how amazing it felt to understand the world around her, and how badly she wanted to make her family proud. From then on, whenever doubt crept in, she revisited those words. Slowly, the teasing stopped, or at least it didn't bother her as much. Other students began respecting her dedication, and some even asked for help with their own assignments. "You're really good at explaining stuff," one classmate admitted sheepishly. Emily smiled, remembering Mrs. Anderson's advice. "Thanks. And if you ever need more help, let me know." By her senior year, Emily had become a leader in the science club. She helped organize events, mentored younger students, and even won second place in a regional science fair. When acceptance letters arrived, Emily couldn't believe her eyes. Not only had she been accepted into college, a dream she once thought impossible, but she'd also received a partial scholarship. "This is all because of you," Emily told Mrs. Anderson tearfully, showing her the letter. Mrs. Anderson hugged her tightly. "No, it's because of you. You worked for this, Emily. You earned it." For Mrs. Anderson, seeing Emily succeed was more rewarding than any paycheck or award. It reminded her that teaching wasn't just about imparting knowledge. It was about planting seeds of belief that could grow into something extraordinary. And yet, Emily's journey was far from over. Neither of them realized just how far those seeds would spread, or how many lives they would touch along the way. Years passed, and Emily's life took her far beyond the small town where she grew up. College opened doors she'd never imagined possible. At first, she struggled to keep up with classmates who seemed smarter and more confident. But whenever doubt crept in, she remembered Mrs. Anderson's words, "Just keep showing up." Emily threw herself into her studies, spending late nights in the lab and poring over textbooks until the words blurred. Slowly but surely, she began to shine. Her professors noticed her determination and encouraged her to pursue research opportunities. By her senior year, she was leading a team working on innovative solutions to clean water shortages, a project inspired by memories of her childhood, when her family often struggled to afford basic necessities. After graduation, Emily earned a spot in a prestigious graduate program, where her groundbreaking work caught the attention of scientists worldwide. She developed low-cost filtration systems that could be implemented in underserved communities, earning accolades for both their ingenuity and impact. One evening, as Emily stood on stage accepting an international award for scientific achievement, she paused mid-speech and looked out at the audience. "I wouldn't be here today without someone very special," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Her name is Mrs. Anderson, and she was my tutor, and so much more, when I was a teenager. Back then, I didn't believe in myself. I thought I wasn't smart enough or good enough. But Mrs. Anderson saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She taught me that failure isn't the end. It's part of learning. And she reminded me that everyone has potential, even if they can't see it yet." The camera panned to Mrs. Anderson, sitting in the front row, tears streaming down her face. She hadn't known Emily planned to mention her. All these years later, she still saw herself as just a retired teacher doing what she loved. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed Mrs. Anderson, eager to hear her story. "What made you decide to tutor Emily?" one asked. Mrs. Anderson smiled softly. "I didn't decide anything. I just saw a girl who needed help, and believed in her before she believed in herself." News outlets picked up the story, calling Mrs. Anderson a hidden hero whose kindness changed the course of Emily's life. Letters poured in from people around the world, thanking her for reminding them of the power of mentorship and belief. For Mrs. Anderson, the attention was overwhelming, but also deeply meaningful. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about knowing that her efforts had sparked a ripple effect of hope and inspiration. Meanwhile, Emily continued breaking barriers in her field, using her platform to advocate for young people, especially girls and those from underserved communities, to pursue careers in STEM. She often returned to her hometown, visiting schools and community centers to share her journey. "You don't have to be perfect to succeed," she'd tell students. "You just have to try. And if you're lucky, you'll find someone like Mrs. Anderson who believes in you when you need it most." During one visit, Emily surprised Mrs. Anderson by announcing a scholarship fund in her name. The Mrs. Anderson Believes in You scholarship would provide financial aid to students pursuing education in science and technology. "This is too much," Mrs. Anderson said, choking back tears as Emily handed her a plaque engraved with the scholarship's name. "It's not enough," Emily replied firmly. "Because of you, I'm standing here today. Now it's my turn to pay it forward." The Mrs. Anderson Believes in You scholarship quickly became a beacon of hope for students across the country. Each year, dozens of recipients were awarded funding to pursue their dreams in science, technology, engineering, and math. For many, it was life-changing, not just because of the financial support but because of the message behind it. Someone believed in them. Among the first recipients was Marcus, a high school senior from a low-income neighborhood. Like Emily years before, he had been told he wasn't college material. But with the scholarship and encouragement from mentors inspired by Mrs. Anderson's story, Marcus went on to study aerospace engineering. Years later, he designed a satellite that helped track climate change, a project celebrated worldwide. Another recipient, Sophia, used her degree in biology to develop sustainable farming techniques, helping rural communities grow food in harsh climates. Yet another, Jamal, became a teacher himself, dedicating his career to mentoring underserved youth in urban schools. Mrs. Anderson marveled at how far her small act of kindness had traveled. She often joked that she'd simply offered cookies and math lessons, but everyone else saw something greater, a reminder that belief can unlock potential. "You didn't just teach me math," Emily said during a visit home one summer. "You taught me resilience, curiosity, and courage. Those are lessons I carry every day." Mrs. Anderson smiled warmly. "And you've taught me that even when we think our work is done, its impact lives on in ways we might never expect." As word spread about the scholarship and its namesake, people began reaching out to share their own stories of unlikely mentors who had changed their lives. Teachers, coaches, neighbors, they all played roles in shaping futures, proving that belief comes in many forms. One day, Mrs. Anderson received a letter from a woman named Clara, who wrote about how Emily's speech had inspired her to start a nonprofit supporting girls in STEM. Enclosed was a photo of Clara standing with a group of young girls, holding signs that read, "Mrs. Anderson believes in us too." Tears filled Mrs. Anderson's eyes as she realized her legacy extended beyond scholarships and awards. It had sparked a movement. People everywhere were paying it forward, creating ripples of kindness and opportunity. Emily stayed close to Mrs. Anderson, visiting whenever she could. Together, they attended scholarship ceremonies, met recipients, and spoke at events about the power of mentorship. Their bond remained unshakable, a testament to the profound connection forged through trust, patience, and belief. One crisp autumn afternoon, as they sat together under the old oak tree in Mrs. Anderson's yard, Emily turned to her mentor. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you hadn't decided to tutor me?" she asked curiously. Mrs. Anderson chuckled. "I don't need to wonder. My life is richer because of you, and because of everyone else this journey has touched. That's enough for me." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "It's funny. Sometimes I think about how different things could have been if I hadn't walked into that community center that day. But you did," Mrs. Anderson interrupted gently. "And look where it led. Life is full of what-ifs, but the important thing is what we do with the moments we're given." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, both women felt a deep sense of gratitude for each other, for the lives they'd touched, and for the countless possibilities still ahead. Because when we believe in others, we create space for miracles to happen. And those miracles, no matter how small they seem at first, have the power to change the world. Mrs. Anderson and Emily's story reminds us of an incredible truth. Even the smallest acts of belief and kindness can create ripples that change lives forever. A retired teacher offering her time, a struggling teenager daring to try again. These moments might seem ordinary at first glance, but they hold extraordinary power. And now it's your turn to be part of this movement. Think about the people in your life who have believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself. Maybe it was a parent who encouraged you to keep going after a failure, a teacher who saw potential no one else did, or a friend who stood by you during tough times. These moments shape us. They remind us that we're capable of more than we think. Now ask yourself, who in your life needs that same kind of support today? Who around you is struggling, doubting themselves, or feeling unseen? You don't need grand gestures or expensive gifts to make a difference. Sometimes, all it takes is noticing someone and saying, "I believe in you." Start small but meaningful. Offer to help a neighbor with their groceries, tutor a child struggling in school, or simply listen without judgment when someone shares their fears. Acts of kindness, no matter how small, add up over time. They plant seeds of hope that can grow into something extraordinary. Speak up when it matters. Like Mrs. Anderson encouraging Emily, use your words to lift others up. If you see someone hesitating to chase their dreams, remind them that failure is part of the journey. If you notice a young person unsure of their future, tell them they have what it takes to succeed. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's as quiet as saying, "You've got this." Invest in others' potential. Whether it's mentoring a student, sponsoring someone's education, or volunteering your skills to help a community project, every bit of effort counts. Believing in someone doesn't just change their life, it changes yours too.